So, a warm welcome to you all today. Thank you very much for coming along. We're very excited about giving this workshop today on the topic of making Agile, making learning stick with Agile teaching. So first of all, I'm Daphne Chisholm-Elie. I'm the founder of Business Class Language Solutions, which I founded in 2003. I've been in France for a long time. I've been a teacher, a manager, and now I'm specifically involved in creating continuing professional development for teachers.
And I'm G.BENKtomI'm a certified coach, and I have been in international business as a trainer, coach, and consultant for over 25 years. And I am really interested in change and the human side of change and human development and applied neuroscience.
So we work with busy professionals, and they have time constraints due to work and family commitments, just as we do. And they can't always invest the time and energy they would like into learning a language. Our learners are usually only with us for quite a short period of time, and they want results because they have to be effective communicators in their jobs. So, and we want the same thing, don't we? We want effective learning, and we want results. So we'll be sharing with you today a framework for effective learning based on Agile principles. Now, Gabriela and I have a lot of experience in teaching and in business, and we've tested a lot of things, we've experimented, and basically learned a lot on our long journey in our careers. We realized that the Agile Manifesto, which is an outline of a way of running projects in the IT world, we thought we could see a parallel, we could see how that could be applied to language teaching. We've also, a course is like a project, isn't it? And how many projects have you got running every week? So there is a need for us to be agile too. We're also very interested in other writers and researchers like John Dewey, for example, with his reflective practice, John Hattie, visible learning, David Rock for applied neuroscience, and of course, very excited to have Thomas Farrell speaking on Sunday. Now, underpinning our approach, there are four main words, all beginning with a C: connection, collaboration, co-creation, and collective intelligence. And we'll try and illustrate these throughout the workshop. We're going to give you a glimpse of how the approach works, and we'll be inviting you to reflect on your practices and what comes up for you after listening to us. So we'll be asking you questions, we'll be giving you time to think individually and in small groups, and then if you're happy to do so, we'll share our thoughts together. But before we get cracking, could you just lean over to the person sitting next to you or in front of you or behind you and share with them why you are here and what you expect to hear about in this workshop. We'll give you about 30 seconds to talk about that.
How many minutes later did we start? Because
about 2 minutes, 2 3 minutes.
2 minutes.
Coming, we just started.
Sure.
Come in, come in. Hello, hello. Just let these people sit down, and was that all right? Could you?
Yeah. Okay. You're stressed a little bit.
Yeah, I'm stressed.
It's okay. It's fantastic. It's noisy. Okay.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much. Okay.
A lot of noise, that's a really good sign.
Yeah, thank
you. That's a
you.
really good sign. Okay, we're mindful of time, so we'd like to ask for 2 volunteers to, to tell us why they're here and what appealed to them about maybe the title, or if you listen to our teaser, I don't know. Who would like to volunteer?
Just 1 word, 2 words.
Yes?
No, 1 word, 2 words. I teach engineers who, in telecom, who use Agile method for what they do all day long. And I've been wanting to create an English course for the English sorts of phrases and keywords that I needed for them in English. But I don't know what the method is.
Okay.
Never heard of what the method is.
Okay.
Yeah, good. Anybody else like to say why they're here? Because they came along with a friend and the friend wanted to come, or?
Okay.
Basically, that's it.
That's me.
Yeah.
I've got these 2.
Great. Great.
To hear about the course because I'm interested in the Agile method.
Agile method, right.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, I've never heard of it.
You've never heard of it? Okay, brilliant. Well, we'll try and make it nice and clear for you. So, what are our desired outcomes for this workshop? Well, thankfully, to help you discover what Agile principles are, for you to reflect on your own practices and acknowledge the importance of your posture, and also the value of engaging learners in co-creation and collaboration. So, over to you.
So, we are going to talk about 3 themes. The process, how to bring the process alive, and the monitoring of the process. And at the end, we'll finish off with questions, if there are questions. And as Daphne touched on it already, there will be the format in each theme. There will be an exploration, a discovery and reflection. Exploration and reflection is about you thinking, reflecting, whilst the discovery, we are sharing all what we think about the topic based on research, our experimentation and practice. Now, when we ask you to share your thinking, then because of time constraints, we need to maybe ask you to be succinct, and also, if you allow us, permit us to stop if somebody is sharing in a lengthy way, and it's not out of disinterest, but we actually need to manage time. Is that okay? Okay, all right. So I would invite you to just lean over, think a little bit, and then lean over to your neighbor and discuss what are the stages of a project. Think about it. A team project, not a solo project when you are with yourself, but with other people. What are the stages of a project? So, and then I will ask somebody, 1 or 2 people to share. Just...
Oh, it's great,
Projects in general. Whichever you choose.
Because the project is always different.
So we started at 27, so I'm going to stop them now and I will ask for... Yeah? Okay, I'm sorry, we have to crack on. So I can see they're a group, so maybe would you be willing to share what came up for you?
Well, you didn't give us enough time to...
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
Identifying a goal and team building. It were two things.
Great. What else? Just some.
Well, we conception, milestones, deliverables.
Great.
Yeah.
Resources. Great.
Brainstorming,
fantastic. Okay. Wonderful. Okay.
Creation.
Sorry?
Creation.
Okay. So here you can see the stages of a project, and it starts with a kickoff. So this is the start of the project. This is when we get to know each other, we build trust, and we talk about the common goal, the common project, and maybe also we agree the communication protocols. And then after that, there is the planning phase. And this is when we create the action plan. Who does what, when. We talk about dependencies, risk assessment, and stakeholders. We identify stakeholders. And then after this phase comes the monitoring and the execution phase. And this is when we implement the plan. And finally, there is a closure. And during the closure, there is a formal acceptance of the product. And also, we speak about the lessons learned. And we also set the success criteria for the benefit of future projects. Now, what I talked about was basically the waterfall project management. And this is a linear way of project management. Here we have really clear goals at the end of the project. So there is a lot of planning going before, at the beginning there is a lot of planning, and then there is the execution. Now, for example, in real life, you can think about property development, but for example, training, I would think about a 1 week intensive training where you set the goals and it's just 1 week long. Now, the Agile project management, you can see that it's circular. So what does that mean? That in each sprint, as we call it, there are all the phases. So basically the kickoff, the planning, execution, monitoring, and the closure. Why is that? Because they used it for software development. At the beginning, the coder and the client couldn't understand each other. So when they started to speak, they couldn't set really clear goals. But as they started to work along and create the product, they understood more and more each other. So there was a direction, but they had to do in smaller chunks. So this is how it started with the Agile principle. Now, why do we think that Agile can be used for business professionals is because generally they take a lesson every week. So we meet with them for a session every week, and we have a contract for 10, 20, 30, 40 hours. So this seems like an Agile project. And basically, what we do, at the beginning, we set SMART goals, but when we meet our learners, they have their assumptions, beliefs, and they don't have real clarity on their goals. There are certain areas where we can dig into, so we know the direction, what they really want to do. Now, why we chunk it down, so basically if we have a 6-month project, then we want to say, let's say we want to have 5 sprints, so 6 weeks, we plan for 6 weeks. It gives a lot of flexibility, because how many times it happened that they wanted to focus on a meeting, then after 4 weeks they were called by a headhunter and they said, oops, I want to focus on interviews. So immediately you can start, it's a new sprint. And also so it gives the flexibility, the agility, so you can adapt very quickly. At the same time, all these sprints will give certainty to the brain, because they see the progress. Oh, we've done this and we closed that topic. And they also agree. Now, it's a highly collaborative process. We have to communicate continuously with the learner, the team. And it means that their involvement and engagement is much higher, the stakeholder engagement. The communication has to be really effective, explicit, open, and also clear during this process. Now, how does this go? This is, we have a start. And at the start, during the kickoff session, we have to envision the end. And we have to decide where we are going to. And of course, it's not a straight line. We know that we are in a VUCA world, so things happen. So the travel is never direct. So during this kickoff session, when we saw the future, we said, you know, these are the themes that we want to cover, and this is how we are going to work together. So we talk about the working culture, so themes and working culture. After that, we need to prioritize. What is your priority? What do you want to tackle first? And this is about also quick wins for us. It's about basically customer satisfaction. And how do you want to sequence it? So there is sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. I want to deal with meetings, presentations, and so on. And after that, you zoom in into the first sprint and you start the detailed planning only, and the kickoff, detailed planning, and the process for the first sprint, where you actually do it together with them. Now, I would invite you to, before that, sorry. So this is a definition that I let you read. That was co-created with some trainers who we worked with. And this was how they summed up, together with us, the process, the Agile teaching process. Now, I'm going to invite you to reflect on what you have just heard about Agile. Questions can come at the end of the session. And just think about it. Would you be inclined to experiment with this? And if not, what is stopping you? If yes, how could you implement that?
So I feel like this sounds familiar to me in terms of collaborations that I've done in lots of different areas. How do you express dynamism within your framework? What's different? What's the agility?
The agility is that, that there is a continuous check-in, for example, at the beginning of each sprint, each session, where they are with their thinking, where they are with their learning. It's not just about language. So we are language experts as well, but we are not just interested in that, but creating effective learning. And so if they want to speed up their process, for example, you check in at the beginning of each session. So what has been going on with your effective learning? And everything, I mean, we will touch on that later, that everything is questions. You ask questions a lot. When they ask you to be a language expert, then you are a language expert. Other than that, you ask questions. So a little bit like Socrates, nothing new. So I don't know if I answered your questions.
Yes, definitely.
I was interested that each sprint has a different sort of topic, like meetings or whatever, but surely each sprint depends on the one that's gone before. That's the whole point. If you're pre-setting it, then actually all you're doing is short courses in different topic areas. So
that's a way to see it.
Influence each other.
Everything influences everything. It's the butterfly effect. So but it depends on priorities of that team or of that person. So it's about, yeah.
When you meet your learners at the very beginning, you often, do a kick-off and you talk about the goals, and people come up with different goals, and so you decide, okay, well, yeah, this is what I'd like to do in 40 hours. So I'd like to touch on improving my pronunciation. I'd like to revise the tenses again and again and again. I'd like to do some presentations. So what you do is you build that at the beginning, and then you say, okay, well, we're going to, if that's okay with you, we're going to start with this sprint, which is perhaps the priority for you, bearing in mind that there were the other goals that had been defined, but that because of the Agile principles, you are allowed to change. And at the end of the sprint, you ask your people, say, okay, are you ready to move on? No, we need to do a bit more work on presentations. Okay. Or maybe, yeah, fine with presentations, let's do something else. And then you check in, you see, as Gabriela says, making sure that everyone's really in line with what they want to do. Because we know that sometimes they come in and they say, well, we want to revise the tenses. But really, that's not what they need, because they can know the tenses, yeah. But how is that going to help them in their business lives? So is that... that helps you? Yeah. So...
Yeah.
You keep the general direction, and then each sprint is, as you say, and that's the beauty of it, because it gives you the opportunity of shifting.
And is this really what you want to do? Is this your goal? It's always a question. Is this really? Go ahead. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Are there any other...
I think we have to move on.
Yeah?
I'm sorry. Sorry for that.
Okay.
What about when somebody already knows the stuff right away? Then you do like.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. We have to move on.
We can talk about that later.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, so now we've talked about the process, the principles, and really, what's important is bringing the process alive. Because a process, a method, a framework is what it is. But without people, without human beings, then, it's rather inactive. So what we would like you to do now is to talk together in small groups. We set out the process. What does that mean, setting out the process? What does bringing the process alive mean to you? If I say that, what does bringing the process alive mean? What does it evoke? And how do we go about bringing that process alive? So maybe you could just brainstorm a bit together.
Maybe together, so...
Yeah.
What do you
We're running just 1 or 2 minutes behind.
Yeah. We're doing okay.
Yeah, we're doing okay. I know, no time. Time flies. Just some words. Let's...
What would you do to bring the process alive? What does that evoke?
Personalization.
Sorry?
Personalization.
Okay.
Personalization, yeah.
Participation as well.
Yeah, participation, nice.
Okay.
Compromise.
Compromise.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Agility.
Okay.
Yes.
Motivation.
Okay, motivation, nice.
Negotiation.
Negotiation.
All right.
Yeah, negotiation, yeah.
Okay. Let's crack on.
Yeah. So, if you remember, there's the kickoff, Then there's the planning of the course together, and that's followed by the execution phase, which is the rollout of the content for as far as we're concerned. Okay? So, what brings the process alive? Well, Gabriella and I like this phrase, human magic, because that's what makes the whole thing come to life. We are human beings, yeah? We're social beings, and we need connections, not just digital connections, huh? And we thrive on relationships. So when building a working relationship with your learners, we really need to think about psychological safety. We want them to feel that they're in a supportive environment where they can express themselves without being judged, where they can feel comfortable about talking about not only their needs and expectations, but also about their fears and their emotions. Learning a new language is exposing oneself. It's stepping out of your comfort zone. And it sometimes means losing some self-confidence. We want, of course, that for the learners to have a pleasant experience while we're together. And paying attention to all these factors helps create the good conditions for learning. Another driver of effective learning is motivation. Now, we often assume, don't we, that because a person is in the classroom that they are motivated. And we all know in our experience that that isn't always the case. And really, if you don't talk about it openly, then you'll never really know the true level of the motivation of people in your class. Some of our trainers said that they didn't really dare bring up the idea of talking about motivation with their learners because they felt uncomfortable about it. But actually when they did, they learnt a lot. They got some insights into the learner's frame of mind. And because they knew better how, why people were there, was it because they were forced to by their managers, or was it because, well, they had the opportunity of doing some training so they thought they'd do English? And that makes a difference to your approach. And keeping up motivation is also something that we do all the time, but maybe we don't talk about it explicitly. We think that keeping up motivation is done by engaging the learners in every step of the way. So from knowing what they want to do with explicit discussion to actually how they're going to do it. And it's very easy, I've done this, to fall into the trap of assuming that you know what a person needs or what a group needs. Okay, they're B1, yeah, I know, I can do that. We'll do this and we'll do that. So basically, Gabriella and I are saying, okay, well, you do have a very good idea of what a B1 is and what that B1 might want to do, but until you've actually discussed it with the learner, you might actually miss the mark. So we consult the learners. We ask open-ended questions. Not, do you want to do this, but tell me what you do in your job. How do you, how do you want to improve your English? We ask open-ended questions. We also listen attentively, and we use feedback as well. Where we see a parallel too with Agile project management is that we consider the learner or a group of learners and ourselves as a team. And as a team, we're stronger and we can learn from each other. We can learn from the collective intelligence that we generate. We also share a common desire to achieve the goals. And it's up to us as project managers to make sure that everyone's on board, to make sure that we're on track, and to facilitate communication and collaboration. As well as that, our job is to help learners understand what is realistic for them, given their circumstances. It's also giving them the space to experiment and to understand that it's okay to make mistakes and they can learn from those mistakes. It's also our job to help them think about how they learn and what strategies they can put in place. And basically, to be a lot more responsible for their learning. Now, this may mean a bit of a change for you in your posture, from shifting from being responsible for everything that goes on in the classroom to involving the learners, giving them a more prominent role. Your role is pivotal. Not only you are an expert in the language, but you're an enabler of effective learning. So that's why in this workshop we're asking you to think about the way you do things in the classroom and acknowledge that your posture has a great deal of importance and it shapes what goes on in the classroom.
So now I would want a little bit shed light on applied neuroscience that you might have already digged into. Because in the past 15, 20 years, there has been a lot going on with the functional MRIs, and there has been a lot of research going on. So there is out there new knowledge about the brains and the nervous system, what the brain can do and what the limitations are. And as we go into a classroom here, so whenever I enter a classroom, I see brains. And I always think about brains because this is actually our material for learning. Now, this is a very important diagram, and maybe you have heard about it. It's about the brain's organizing principle. It was Evian Gordon who first talked about this. And our brain is not for thinking. It's about survival. So we continuously our brain scan for threat. And we want to get away from threat, and we want to go towards reward. Now, threat is much bigger, the threat reaction in our brains, than the reward. Why do we have this? Because this is evolutionary carryover. We are here because our ancestors could run away from the animals on the savannah. And this is so much embedded in our brains that we are still scanning every minute for threat. And the primary reward is food, sex, and social connections. We are social, and this is just built in us. Now, nowadays, the good news that there are no lions around us. But as we are social, our brain scans continuously for social threat. And we scan for social threat in any connection with people. The other thing is what you need to know about the brain, and this is Lieberman who researched the pain, the relationship between physical and mental pain, is that he found when he used this fMRI that the physical pain and the mental pain, emotional pain, they light up the same areas in the brain. And this is what we call pain in the brain. Think about it, it's rejection. This is the biggest pain ever, social pain. And the bad news with social pain, we remember because we form memories. We can't really remember when we use a hammer and we hit our finger. We don't have the memories of that. but a rejection stays with us years later. What we need to know, when we experience a threat response, our brain has an emotional reaction. And this is something like two cars pulling into the same petrol point. So either I think or I have this very strong negative emotional reaction. I can't think, I can't use my cognitive capacity when I have a strong emotional reaction. So this is what we have to deal with, and this is what we need in order, if we want our learners to think and learn, then we also have to deal with the emotions, and we need to decrease the stress, because what happens is their cognitive performance decreases. It becomes non-existent. So they get into the survival mode. What do we want? We want creative mode. So their field of view is wide. They can think, they can create memories, they can remember. They can collaborate with us, with each other, and they are motivated, so they have high mental performance. Now, I'm asking you, what do you think about this, and what is your takeaway from this that we shared with you? And just to think about it, how would you sum this up to somebody if you talked about bringing the process alive? So how would you sum it up? Or what is your takeaway?
So if you'd like to talk together again.
So 55.
Yeah, we've got 20 minutes.
Okay, well, I tried to be short. 56. It's okay, we're good. We're good. 55, okay, but we have 5 minutes.
Yeah. We're doing okay.
Yeah.
We can let them talk for 2 minutes here. Yeah. I think it's...
was it understandable?
Yeah, I think so.
56, yeah. So we let them a little bit more.
I saw some people nodding.
57.
Yeah.
57. Yeah. I forgot to say something in the end, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You said
there was a lot of information there anyway, so...
Yeah. Shall we?
Give them another 30 seconds.
Okay. So, yeah, would you be ready to share some thoughts or takeaway or anything what came up for you? Anybody to share?
I think that a lot of what we've been saying is what might be called effective teaching. Learner autonomy, safe environment, motivation, understanding motivation. That's not necessarily agile, as far as I can see. The agile process is being able to be flexible and adapt and change and not do this waterfall thing of boom, boom, okay, what's next on the list, this. But the rest, the other stuff, I think, is what we understand as effective teaching now. I'm not saying people do it.
True. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
There is nothing new really at the end of the day. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It depends also on what context you work in, of course. You know.
It's about collaboration, yeah.
Some of this may be applicable, some of it may not be applicable in your situation.
What the Agile needs is that you drive less. Basically, you are not in the driving seat. That's the most important thing. And this is how you shift that. That's the question. You are not the driver. There is a team, and the learner is driving, and you facilitate. That's the big question. That's with the Agile. It's the same.
And if you're in a system like a school where you have to do this and it takes 40 minutes and you've got everything's organised for you,
no,
then that's not Agile.
No, but I think even within that context, there are moments where you can, you can bring the learners, involve the learners more in the decision making.
I called kids who get bad grades, they silence quitting. They shut their PFC, the prefrontal cortex, and they quit. They are there, their bodies are there, but their brain, because they don't have choices, no autonomy, so yeah. Okay, shall we?
Anything else?
I just want to say, I don't know if most of you teach in France or other places, but it's very, who teaches in France here? No. So I taught in Tokyo for over a decade, and one thing I noticed in Tokyo and here is this, like you were saying about the threats, about feeling humiliation, about speaking in front of other people, about being, making a mistake. And the French, they, culturally they are handicapped, I find. Like if they can dance the swing, the thing my parents did in the 50s, they'll do it in a disco, otherwise they won't dance. If they can cook well, they'll invite a lot, they'll be cooking all the time, and otherwise they won't really invite people over. If they speak English very well, they'll speak eloquently in front of a lot of people, a lot of confidence, otherwise they won't speak. So there's this whole like stage fright thing that shows it with the diagram you did with the emotions overwhelming the thinking part where I can't. And as a teacher, how do you address that and how do you encourage that? This is a huge challenge for us in France.
It's
loosen up and let them make mistakes and not never ever humiliate them for making a mistake.
Talk to them about the brain and neuroplasticity, and then they are not talking about themselves, identify with themselves, but they talk about, oh, my brain made the mistake and I have a chance with neuroplasticity. So then the whole game, it's a game changer for a lot of people in France. I mean, I could see that. It's not about me, it's about the brain, and I can tweak it because there is a way. Okay, I'll leave it there.
Okay, so now we go on to the next phase, which is monitoring the process. So we've got the process, we've bringing it alive, and now how do we monitor it? We're not talking about tests or assessments here. This is something different. So just think about for individually, how do you observe the evidence of learning in a course? How do you do that? What practices do you put in place?
Role play.
Sorry?
Role play.
Okay.
Right.
The evidence that they use techniques or vocabulary in the following sessions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's repeated.
Okay.
Recording learners and then working on something and then re-recording them and observing the differences.
Yeah. Great idea.
Listening all the time. Observing, listening.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Observing and listening.
Observing and listening, yeah, very good. Good. Great.
Okay.
So, monitoring the process, enabling the learners to achieve their immediate goals means appraising and adjusting the content continually. This is what we talk about, the loop. It would be a pity to wait until the end of the course or the sprint to discover that nobody was happy, or they were dissatisfied, or that they were disappointed. With Agile teaching, we put in place regular check-ins. So these check-ins allow the team to talk about the goals that they'd set for themselves and how far they are along the road to achieving those goals. Or to discover that their goals have changed en route and they want to fix different goals. Motivation also can be talked about. Where are you? Where is the motivation? You know, sometimes you can feel that the motivation fluctuates. It goes up and down. You know, it never stays the same anyway, motivation. So it's sometimes interesting to ask questions about that. How are you feeling? You know, are you happy with what's going on so far? Is this really useful? Does it fit with what you originally decided to study? And so the value of taking stock means that you're bringing to light things that may otherwise have gone unnoticed. Well, just exactly how do we appraise learning? Well, by looking and collecting evidence. Can the learner do what he set out to do? How well can he do it? Is he there yet? And what steps should he take now? And how does he feel about what's happening so far? Observing evidence is obviously easier if you know what you're looking for. Let's take, so we suggest agreeing on indicators that everyone can understand, that are simple and clear and measurable. So just, for example, take the example of confidence. Well, confidence is a bit difficult to monitor and measure, isn't it? Well, we suggest discussing the indicators with the learner. So, for example, you could say, well, what does confidence look and feel like to you? What level of confidence are you at now? And you might say, je suis nul. Hein? We hear that every time. What level of confidence would you like to be? And this is where the little tool, the scaling tool, comes in very useful, you know, from 0 to 10. And you can say, well, where is your confidence on this scale? And they say, oh, 3. And you say, well, where would you like to be in the next, you know, in the next term? Well, I'd like to be 6. Okay, so the learner's decided that there needs to be some progress, but it's his definition of what progress looks like, not ours. The beauty of this practice is that the learner is fully engaged in the process. And we're making learning and the good habits and the learning strategies, we're making them visible. Perhaps in the case of confidence, the learner might say, okay, well, you know, after you've worked on it for a bit, under your guidance, and you've done a lot of role plays and you've recorded them, and he might say, yeah, that's fine, I'm happy with that, great. Or he might say, oh no, you know, I really need to work on it a bit more. So this is where we have to be agile and say, okay, you know, we said we would do meetings next week, but let's work again a little bit on confidence. So feedback is a word that we often use in our business, isn't it? And Gabriella and I would like to suggest that you try out feed forward, which for us has a more positive ring to it, and it fits well with the agile approach. Because we want to encourage a growth mindset. We want learners to be propulsed into continuing the learning. And to know that even if they're not there yet, they will be, or they may be. This word "yet" is very, very important for learners too. And we often give praise, don't we? We say, oh, bravo, excellent, you know, great job. And we're not saying that that's bad, or you shouldn't do it. But just think about, what information is that giving the learner? How is that helping him with his learning? Maybe we should say things something like, bravo, that was good, I can understand you better than last week. You speak more slowly, so that's great. Maybe, you know, we can work on that a little bit more. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that you're speaking more slowly and you can see that people are understanding you? So a lot of learners depend on the teacher for feedback, don't they? Oh, how was I doing? You know, was it all right? We would like to suggest that you engage in self-directed feedback, and we'll be talking about that, giving you an example later. You know, what feedback can the person himself give himself? And we believe that that's also developing a skill which they can use in other walks of their, you know, in their personal lives or in elsewhere in their lives. And we also believe a lot in peer feedback. So let's turn to the group. What does the group think of how you do, of how you're doing? Are there any suggestions? And because we're working as a team, then we can learn from each other. And we can learn as well as trainers and teachers. Now, just to finish off, the closing phase of a project or a sprint, what we call wrapping up, maybe, in our language, is you know, of paramount importance. And sadly, the wrapping up phase is often neglected or you know, rushed through. Oh, I haven't got time. And it's a pity, because it's a fantastic opportunity to make learning stick. And this can be done by reviewing in detail what's been going on, reflecting on lessons learned, what worked, what didn't work, what they might want to do differently next time, but also, and very importantly, identifying and celebrating their successes. This is making learning visible. And then, of course, discussing what's the next step? Where do we go from here? Because as we know, learning never finishes, does it? So, that's it. And maybe we can go on to the, yeah. So, as I mentioned before, this is a little example, a model of some of the questions that you may want to ask after, for example, an activity where you had a 10-minute discussion. And sometimes we launch into giving feedback ourselves. What we'd like to suggest is that maybe you don't need to ask all of these questions, but we just wanted to put them up for reference. And you'll notice that they're all questions that invite the learner to speak. And there's not just a yes-no answer to these questions. How did that go for you? How did it feel? You know, we're talking about feelings. Well, yeah, you know, I felt really embarrassed, or I felt really nervous. You know, get these words out into the open so that you can, as Gabriella says, you know, if somebody feels threatened by an activity, then they're not going to want to do it, and they're not going to learn much from it. So the last one, what is your takeaway? This is really important to us, and we'll be asking you that question later on. Okay. So once again, over to you. Some time for discussion together. What comes up for you? How could this be applicable in your context? Would you be willing to try it out? We're talking about the questions. If yes, then what will you do next to try it out? And if no, would you be willing to share the reason why you wouldn't be able to use that technique? So we'll give you a couple of minutes to think about that.
A couple of minutes, not couple of minutes, but just a little time. So we're We're good. We're good. We're finishing. Yeah. We're finishing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the wrap up now.
So the closing remarks have to be quick.
Yeah.
So we can't
just do the takeaway.
Yeah. No review. Well, review just the three things, and then take.
Do you want to do the review quickly? Or?
Yeah, I can do the review, but I don't even think that we need because they are doing the takeaway.
Ask questions. Or I think it's good to say because we talk
go
about
ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead. You do it. So I'm gonna jump from here to there.
Right. Okay.
I'm not gonna show that, and you tweak that.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Okay. Ready to rock?
I think that's right. Would anybody like to share what came up for them during that last part? Yes?
Well, I just like to say that I feel much more reassured that it's actually a method that's used because I feel this is what I do anyway.
Right.
I do this.
Yeah.
And I've put in place, in fact, just because I feel like with a normal test, grammar, vocabulary, listening, reading, you don't have the full level of the person. I think confidence is something we cannot measure, so I've put in place an auto-evaluation at the beginning and at the end.
Right.
And with their SMART goals and how we got there, how we can do better, and things like that. So I think it's
great.
That's great.
Well, I'm glad because it's true. We've done this course with a few of our trainers, and it's true. Some of them say, "Well, we feel we kind of got permission to do what we've been doing," and so that's basically it. We don't have to follow the book. We can experiment and be creative ourselves. So well done. Yeah, great.
Just for somebody who's actually followed the course with Gabriella and Daphne, we all learned in our training course. We actually all learned something, which we didn't learn 100% of what we were spoken about, but we learned how to do things better in certain occasions. And the idea of the sessions that we were doing together, it helped us to participate among trainers to see what techniques that we were using that could be used in another person's training session.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Because it's true, it's actually true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to have to wrap up now. Could somebody give us just a quick takeaway? What is the one thing that you may have remembered or may have said, oh yes, the light has been switched on somewhere?
Feed forward. That's good. Feed forward.
Feed forward, right. Okay, yes, good. Yeah, great. Yes?
I like the neuroscience bit about the threats, how the brain works and threat. I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to think a lot about that.
I think that's really
really
there. Useful.
It's very important.
Yeah. And once you're aware of that, then you can see, perhaps you can understand why people are holding back and they don't dare speak. It's because they feel, that they're not in a comfortable position. It's not always easy to manage that. But at least knowing it means, you stop thinking, oh, well, what am I doing wrong? Because often we accuse ourselves, don't we? Things are not going right. Okay, great. Yeah, Fiona.
The Agile aspect, I think, is important because, or the parallel with Agile project management. I think in software, or Agile project management for software, companies deploy software before it's completely ready, and they'll deal with bug fixes on the way. So the training can be kind of similar. you work on something and it's not perfect, but it's perfectible, and you keep on working, and that's where the agility comes in. You check in, and they say how they feel, and the rest, you know, it's, for me,
just falls into place.
Parallel, yeah.
Good, thank you, Shannon, thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much for such wonderful participation. I hope we haven't bored the pants off you, and that you might remember some of what we said. It's possible for you to have the, if you want, the slides.
The slides are there.
If you want the slides, they're there.
So this is just view. So this is, if you scan that, you get to the slides. But
if you want to write to me,
and you can write to,
fine.
Yeah.
And also, just to let you know that we do actually hold training courses. The next one is in January, and the title of the course is called Training as an Agile Project, and it's totally online. And if you want more information about it, you could use this or use the URL. And Gabriella and I are the trainers on this course.
Facilitators.
Facilitators, yes. Oh, sorry.
Wow. So hopefully.
If you have any questions, I think we may have a couple of minutes.
No, we need to go down. Yeah,
we have to go. Yeah.
Okay. You can ask questions downstairs.
Yeah. We'll be downstairs having a drink. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You need to give this talk at BSIC. We've been talking about this stuff for 6-10 years.
Yes.
It's a really big thing in business English teaching, and people have got very similar plans to you.